quickly setting up so that I am ready for you guys, and then we can begin. I'm just gonna pull up my screen on here on my laptop so I can see your comments as we go along, and gonna give you guys some time to kind of roll in while I set up really quickly. I have images right here of what we had done this week, and it was, hi Patty, good afternoon over here since we're at 2, but yeah, really quickly just kind of talking about what we did this week. And it was hi Zanette, and it was trees, and we did the blue Christmas tree in like a nice pink gray setting background in a very impressionistic style, so it was more dots than painting, as Patty pointed out. And then this was done on Instagram. I did a live really quickly on Friday just to kind of go over the trees one more time. And then finally Saturday, if anyone got to catch it, I posted this, which was like a little barn in the midst of like a wintry scene. So hope you guys had a chance to check it out and paint that. And then today I was thinking of doing these again, but I think I'm going to switch it up a bit, and 2018 is when I did a post on doing your own Christmas tags, and it was quite well received. Mind you, at that time I didn't quite have much of a following, but I think I'm going to bring that back because I have a lot of DIY people on here who like to do their own stuff, so we could use these ideas that I'm going to do as either for your gift tags or cards even. So I have a couple of ideas, and I have this tiny sheet on here, and I've just divided it into half, and I'm gonna keep another sheet handy in case we want to do more. Now I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? Should we do is 2 enough, or do you want to do 3 or 4 different things that we can kind of play around with for ideas? Let me know in the comments, or in the chat rather, not the comments. And then this way I have an idea of what time frame you guys are working with. I'm hoping to not have this go on for too long in any case, so it's not like these will be super detailed paintings. But yes, please let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. And I'm just trying to quickly make sure that I can get my, yeah, there we go. I can get my view properly and see your comments at the same time. All right. Okay, I'm just going to keep this on the side. We're going to start off with 2, and then we'll see how we go from there. What I want to do this time is bring back the Christmas tree that I did 2 years ago. And let's see. Okay, sounds like the general consensus from my 2 top fans, Patty and Zanette, seems to be more is good, and however many you want. So okay, let's kind of go along and see what we do. Hey Cindy, hi Deborah. 70 degrees, oh wow. I'm in my room here ready to paint, and my hands are kind of cold and freezing, and I'm just wishing I was in warmer weather. But I'll just read it from you guys and reminisce in warmer temps in my mind, I guess. All right, okay, so let's begin. We've got quite a few people on here already, so let's begin. I am, most of you know, if you've watched a lot of my videos, I wing most of my videos. I have an idea, I decide to try it with you guys, and we just go live right away. So, okay, so this is also probably going to be one of those times, so bear with me. I'm going to tell you what brushes I'm using and what paints I'm using, but we might derail from this. So for my reds, I'm going to be using both the Carmine and the Madder Lake Red. because I figured let's get a nice blend. And to get like darker hues, I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of black. So I have these three up here. And then let's see, for my greens, because we're going to be doing more pines or Christmas tree looking structures, I will be using the umber. I will be using the green. And this is all St. Petersburg White Knights, by the way. I am keeping my emerald handy, just in case we want to kind of mix it in. And for browns, Mars Brown, and I want to say this is the sepia. So this is like a dark brown, this is like a medium brown, and yeah, that's what we're kind of going to start off with. So I'm keeping these aside. For brushes, I think because of the size of the paper, we're probably going to be using a lot of my number 4. If I had a number 2, that would probably also be in the mix. I'm going to move these aside so they don't confuse anyone. Oh, we'll also be using a little bit of gouache. So this is white gouache. Just keeping that on the side. And yes, so we'll do the number 1 Da Vinci Mop, number 8 Princeton Neptune, and then the number 8 Silver Black Velvet. And these are just going to be on standby. I'll use them at some point and we'll let you know as I kind of go along. I have paper towel ready, I have my shell palette, and I have my water ready, and we are good to begin. So the first thing I'm going to do is a rustic looking Christmas tree. And I know we've done a lot in the forest sort of look and feel, but this is going to be more singular and more part of a, like it could be part of a card or a gift tag or whatever you want to call it. So we will begin with using similar techniques to how we achieved this look here, which was laying down a background and then kind of a wash of color or wash of water, and then kind of going in and adding some detail. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my mop brush for this, and we will be using, let me mix some of the color on here. So I'm going to use a little bit of my umber, and I'm just going to mix that on here really quickly. Oh, looks like there was still some white gouache on there, so I'm going to move it on here. A little bit of umber on here. And then I want to also mix a little bit of the green. And I'm mixing that here. So I want these two hues kind of interchanging and blending in on paper. Okay, so have that on here, keeping these aside. And then I'm just gonna get the tip of this to kind of do a quick little wash. And this is what that is going to look like. We want it to be a faint wash that we do. So I'm just gonna have my brush kind of go along this way, and then just getting a little more water on the brush so I'm not getting more color. I'm just spreading it out some more. And the outsides can be like a rough edge, so it looks organic. Now I'm washing off most of the color, and with just water on my brush, I'm just blending down the sides and the edges and the top a little bit here. Now I'm using green, but you might totally want to use a different color. I'll leave that up to you. You know, we've got like different colors happening in this season, so all right. So now that I have this, I'm gonna go ahead and get some, use my number 4 and get some of my green. So getting some of my green. I'm gonna start from the top and just do a very light lay of color and adding strokes that are kind of going downward. So like a V almost. And we're getting this like nice flare of color, and it's almost like a nice blend of color, and it almost looks like the little detail in the tree pines. So it's perfect for the kind of tree we are trying to do. So as you kind of go along, get some of the umber in there as well, without washing any of the green off your brush, and just kind of go on down. And just loving this effect that's happening over here. It's so relaxing to watch and also do at the same time. And if you're not quite getting this effect, it's possibly one of several factors, or a combination of different factors. Either your water to color consistency is off, or you have you're using a different style of paper, but in most cases it is the water to color consistency. So what I did was, like I said, I laid down the water wash first, and then I went in with a darker saturation of color, and I'm just adding these uneven kind of lines in here. Now once I have this, I'm going to let this dry a tad bit. And I want to do the base. So for the base, I'm going to use most of the umber, which is like a nicer brown green tone. And I'm just adding very loose strokes to kind of show a hint of the base, just like that. And again, it's damp enough that it's kind of doing that blurry stuff, blend. And then for you can actually leave it as is, or you can do a little pot for it to go into. Feel free to use any color you like for this. I'm going to use the Mars Brown. And I'm just adding a couple of strokes, leaving some white space in between. And that's it. I'm leaving it at that. And just for the base, to get a little bit of a darker color, I'm just getting some of the umber and just adding it to the base. And I'm just going to add a tad bit of it at the top as well. And there we go. I'm leaving it at that. And now I think it is still partially damp here. I'm just going to spray a little bit of water on here to get a little more flare of color if anything is still damp. And you can see the little flare of white. Well, it looks white, but it's because the water has landed on damp paint, and I want that kind of soft, loose effect where it looks like it's snow. It may be snow, not quite, we don't know. All right, so now that we have this done, I'm just kind of bending down to check to see how, yeah, I think we can go in with a darker color now. So now we are doing our third layer of color, and once again using my number 4, and I'm going to use the nice green that we have, which is this, it's just called green, and going in like this. So we're doing the exact same motion, starting from the top, and just kind of adding your things of color, trying to make it sporadic. Doesn't have to be even, guys, just highlighting certain areas. We're not coloring everything. We want to have these nice spaces of white that we have in there, have the dark color kind of floating down, and then we don't want it to be dark throughout, but kind of have a nice blend of color. So it's sporadic and haphazard, to say the least, the strokes I mean. So we're just kind of going along. And then I like my little dots at the edges, so totally do that. Have them blend in nicely. I'm gonna get some of that umber too happening in the mix, just to have a nice variation. And we're not quite highlighting the center, so feel free to not do that, because again, we want to keep it light and loose and not quite overly detailed. So kind of continuing on in the same motion. Feel free to kind of get, again, we're using just 2 colors. Feel free to get different consistencies in saturation. And just carry on. So we were darker at the top and we were kind of going lighter at the bottom, and you can highlight certain areas to be slightly darker, giving us that uneven, loose look. Adding water where you feel like you need to, just to kind of have the colors blend in nicely. All right, and you could totally just like leave it as is. I'll leave the detail to you guys. So if you reach a stage where you feel like I like how this looks, stop. There we go. So we have that. And now we're just going to go ahead and use some of that umber to kind of enhance the stump that we did. And see it kind of flared into the green. If that happens, that's totally fine. Just make sure it kind of blends in a manner that looks like it's cohesive, as opposed to, you know, like a yellow blending it with red, which totally looks off. And I like the mix in the colors. Like it's just, it blends in well. Now we're going in for the Mars Brown, just to do our base again, just a tad bit. And there we go, we have our base. And I'm just going to use with my number 4 to kind of swish some of the colors around. And it just has water on my brush, or I only have water on my brush. That's what I was trying to say. And it's giving me a nice blend. It was hard edges before, because when you're laying down color on a base that has already dried up, you don't quite get that blend. So as I'm going in with water, it's giving me a softer blend. And there we go, we're good. So now again, you can do the whole splatter of water if you want. I'm just getting a little bit of it and doing that again on my tree. And in fact, you can even take some of the dark green. That's what I'm going to do. Mixing it onto my palette on this side a tad bit. And I'm just going to do a little splatter. Because I like splatters. All right, good enough. Kind of went on this side, but it's okay. We'll work the splatter into whatever we do here. And so now that we have this, we can go in with some gouache. But let's let this dry a little bit before we kind of go in with gouache. And again, you might choose to do gouache, white gouache, to kind of indicate snow. You might choose not to. I'll leave that entirely up to you. But we'll let this dry up for a bit, and then we'll kind of head back onto it. What's the consensus, by the way, just because this is a live and I can ask you guys this question? Should we do snow on this or should we not? Let me know in the chat, guys. I'm just reading the comments really quickly as you guys are responding. Hi, Josie. Hi, Artie. You're welcome, Artie. Glad you could join. Hi, Shelly from chilly, sunny Saskatoon. Zanette's making cards. Okay, awesome. YouTube seems to be only partially here today. Susan, I'm not quite sure what you mean. Do you mean like there's less people on here? Yes, Zanette, you should totally try the botanical snowflake. Lori, if you're asking Zanette about the snowflake, it is one of the videos that I did. I think it was last week. Oh, yeah, it was last Sunday. It was last Sunday's live. Wow, time's flying by so quickly in my head. Okay, yes to snow, no to snow, no snow, without snow. Snow is good. Okay, awesome. I think we have like a mix of snow or no snow. That's okay. So what I'll do is I'll just leave it for now. And let's do another one over here before we can go back. I think I will. It does look quite pretty without the snow, doesn't it? But the snow really does add so much to things, as you can see on here. But yes, if we don't end up doing snow, which I'm still unsure about, you guys can always check out these videos from this week. So no rush. All right, so for this, we're gonna do something floral and fun. Should we do poinsettias or should we do roses? Let me know in the chat, guys. Add slush. Roses, poinsettias, I'm getting both. Okay, again, we have a tie. Oh, roses are winning. Both is also winning. Okay, all right, let's see what I can do here. So let's start off with doing the poinsettia first because of the layers, it's a little more, what's the word? We need it to dry a little before we can kind of go back into it. And yeah, so let's start with the poinsettias first. I was going to say something else, but I said, never mind. Talk less, do more. So for the poinsettia, we're going to use the Madder Lake Red, which is like a nice, cool red, I think. Is that the word I'm looking for? I think so. So I'm going to get some of the red here, mix it onto my palette. And actually, before I mix it on there, I know there's a little bit of white gouache happening. So I'm just gonna wipe it off with my paper towel and mix my red. So this is the red we get. Oops, wrong red. All right, so we have this red and we are going to make sure it has a good consistency on here. And give me 1 second to kind of make sure I have, yes. Okay, so now that we have the red, the first thing we're gonna do is we'll just have a little bit of a chit chat over location of things. So I think the poinsettia, we can have it as the main flower because I don't want to do it more than once. So we can have it as the main floral right here, and then maybe a rose here and like a rosebud at the side, and then we kind of go off into other things. So poinsettias are pretty much like doing leaves in a circle, and they don't have to be the same size either. So we're going to do that using the number 4, and I'm just adding. So this is what I do, is just pressing down the brush, trailing off, starting from the top, pressing down trailing off to the center. All right, and then again, getting some of that. We're going to do the same motion all over again, pressing down, trailing off. And then I'm just dipping the tip in water to get a lighter consistency of color, pressing down, trailing off. And then let's do one more on this side, pressing down, trailing off, getting another swash of color on the tip of the brush, and then just adding extra color at the very center of the petals so that it flares out. And then finally, let's do one more over here. And if you can hear baby elephant sounds, almost like sounds of little baby elephants running, those are my kids interrupting my session when they know they shouldn't be. And I'm just kind of going over these just so that when it dries, it doesn't give us that stain. So just giving it some detail there. And notice I've left some white space in the center. Try and do that. So we're gonna let this dry off for a bit before we come back and add another layer to it. Okay, so we can move on to the roses for now. And okay, roses. Let's do, so for the roses, let's do, what color should we do? Should we do pink or red? Or like a mix, or mix the Madder Lake red with some of the black and get like a darker hue? Should we do a darker hue? Yes, I think we should do a darker hue. I'm just gonna mix some of that on here. And it gives me a, like a purpley hue. And if you've checked out the fall roses video I did, I think we're getting that sort of color. All right, so I'm gonna use the number 4 again, and this time we are going to add little C strokes in the center, and literally you could do 3 and get away with it. So here's what I'm gonna do, and I'm keeping my number 8 handy, and here we go. So adding a C stroke or a comma stroke, another one, and a third one. And then I'm going, just touching the tip of my brush in water, and I'm going outward and spreading the brush as I lay down the stroke. Here's another one. And here's one more. And now I'm just taking the number 8 brush that I have, and with just water on it, I want to smoothen out, creating the same kind of strokes, but with just water on it. Make sure you don't have too much water, otherwise it's going to start pooling. And we got some green on here too from the splatter, so it's sort of mixing. And you're leaving white space in between. So I'm going to go back in with this and get some of that purpley red that we did, and I'm just adding a couple of strokes so that now what happens is it's flaring out and we're getting our rose. And I'm just washing off all the color because I don't want my edges too straight. I want them to be soft. And so I always go in with water and kind of soften the edges. And then you're just darkening the center. So yeah, go back in with your deep purple color that you have. So I'm just mixing some of that here and going in there. And now when you do the same, you kind of get these folds of petals around. All right, so there's one rose, and we can do another one that's kind of peeking downward. Over here, I say maybe. Yeah, let's do it there. So again, I'm kind of creating the same color that I did because I've used up quite a bit of it. So I'm using the same color, mixing some of the Madder Lake red with a tiny bit of black. And I just want to darken up the center a bit before I move on to this next rose. And this way it gives you a nice dark center, and then the outside is like a nice gradient. Okay, so we're doing the rose again for those who missed it. And this is how we're doing it. So comma stroke, C stroke. Here's another one. Here's another one. And then just washing off most of the color with just water on it. We're doing our big strokes around, leaving white space in between as we create these strokes. And I don't want this to be there, so I'm just using water to kind of wash it off. And there we go, we have our rose. Just gonna add more of that detail in the center, and then you can do what we did previously by adding a couple of highlights to the edges of some of these petals. And then so that it doesn't look too dark, we're just using water to smoothen it out. And there we go. We have another rose. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the berries to go with it. And for that, I'm going to use the umber, and I will use a combination of the Madder Lake red along with the carmine, just to get a slight variation in our reds that we're using here. Okay, so it helps to kind of lay down the direction of the branches first. So I'm going to get some of that on my number 8, and this is a fairly pointed tip, so I can get away with using it just because I have the 1-4. And let's kind of do it in a semicircle kind of direction. So I'm going to add one here this way, and then adding some branches from it this way, just protruding that way. All right, so there we have that. And now going in, I'm using my red that I just mixed on the number 4, and we are creating some very loose berries. I could do these for days. I mean, they're just obsessive sometimes. I don't know if I'm the only one. The berries, I mean, not the composition as a whole, because sometimes that can stress me out because I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done it here, I should have done it there instead. So we're just doing berries. We're leaving white space in the center, adding a couple of dots here and there. And then if you want to give it a slight variation in color, or you know that blend that you normally get, just take another brush and with just water on it, kind of go to a berry and just add the same motion of like creating a berry, and it's pulling color from there, and it gives you this nice faint kind of berry happening, so it looks dreamy and gives you a variation color. So there you go. If you didn't know, now you know. All right, so we have that. We'll do the same thing on, let's do it on this side. So you can do yours shorter if you wish. I'm just kind of doing it this way. And I'm going to add a little bit of the regular green in there just to kind of have a mix of color. And then using the color we mixed, we're doing the berries again. If you didn't get to do any white space in that section here, make sure you try and get some over here. Now I'm creating some berries that are like close to the green so that they touch the green and we get some color mixing in. And just kind of put them sporadically around here and there, wherever you see fit. And then try and join the ones that don't have a twig or a branch. But they all don't need to. And then we're doing the same exercise using the other brush with just water on it. We're creating a couple of berry, I think these dried up already, so I'm going to use a lighter. I'm cheating by adding a tad bit of the pink on here to kind of get that same effect. Yeah. All right, there we go. So we have that. Now we can kind of go in and create some greenery, and let's plump up this sea wreath, or half a wreath, or whatever you want to call this. All right, so for the leaves, we're going to do a couple of different leaves. Let's do, we're definitely going to do pine leaves for sure. So maybe we should start with those first. No, you know what? Let's start off with the poinsettia leaves because they are quite big, and I think that's what's going to make this look nice and rich. So for that, I'm going to use my green, St. Petersburg green, and it's a nice deep rich green. I love it, and I think it works great with this kind of palette where everything's kind of muted, and this will be a nice pop of green. All right, so using my number 4, I'm going to create one leaf right here, one here, and possibly one here, because they usually kind of flower around the flower itself. So mimicking the same motion that we used to kind of create these, I'm kind of filling in, creating the shape of a leaf first and foremost, and then filling it in, making sure I don't really touch the inside of the flower. So we're being intentional, not as loose as we normally are. And I'm leaving a little bit of white space, like right there and whatnot. So we have that. Then I'm going to create one more. Oh, I said I was going to do one more here. And this time I'm going to get a little bit of the umber green, just a tad bit. And creating the same shape, trying to leave white space. Making sure we don't go into the red petals. There we go, there's one. And push all the color down to the center. And this will give you that nice effect where it looks like, oh, the leaf has a shadow because it's like coming from under the flower. And then let's do this one more time over here. I'm just dipping the tip in water to get a slightly different consistency. And getting more color now because that was a bit too light. And again, so this is our third. And we pushed it all the way down. And we're good. All right, so then, now that we have this, I think now we can kind of just create some of the other greenery that we're going to be doing. So for the next ones, I'm going to use a lot of the umber so that it's not as bright as this green. And so I'm mixing some of the umber with this green to get like this muted olivey green almost, you could say. All right, so I have that here ready, mixed and ready to go. And then I'm just going to get some of the, where is the brown? Some of the Mars brown, mixing it in with the sepia to get like a slightly darker version of the brown happening here. So you can decide what brown you want and kind of go with it. All right, so we're gonna start doing the pine leaves now. And so for that, I will do one over here. And I'm doing these that have multiple branches, I guess you could say. And then without washing all the color off, I'm just getting some of my green. And then from the outside in, I'm just roughly creating these lines onto my painting. And I want them to be loose looking, which is why you can see there's a difference in consistency happening right now compared to the actual florals that we have. And then you can go in with the brown and just highlight the centers even more. And then this way you have a nice dark center. So I'm gonna go in and just get some of the dark brown directly off the palette, and I'm adding a swoop in the center. And you see how it gives you that nice flare immediately. Also, it's a nice pop compared to everything else happening. That is what we want. All right, so now we've done one here. I want to do one. Let's do one over on this end here. Let's do it here. And I'm just going to do two on this side here. So washing off most of the color, just getting some of my green. And I am loosely going to start painting. These leaves in. You can overlap on some of the roses if you wish. It's totally fine. And now once I have that on, again, just like we did previously, I'm getting some of the dark brown and I'm going to add it directly into the center, and then it flares out to the other spots as well. All right, so we have that, and now we can kind of do some of these that are slightly, some of the leaves that are a little more generic in nature and not quite Christmassy or holiday-like. So I'm just using some of the muted color green that we mixed, and the consistency is a tad bit more water than the color, and we're just kind of going to go ahead and create a couple of leaves that will look along the lines of something like this. So we're just getting one out, a stem out there, and we're just adding one leaf here, another leaf here, washing off most of the color to kind of use this extra color that we've created, water that we've laid down here, and then this way we're getting a loose consistency without having something too detailed. I'm going to get some green directly from the palette, and I'm just adding it to the tips so that it kind of runs through and gives us a variation. Same thing for wherever else you add these leaves. So I'll do one here. And very loosely adding these leaves, adding some white space, leaving some white space in there. And then we want these to kind of also dry up a lot lighter compared to the rest of it. So I'll just add some over here on this end, just kind of peeking out from the rows. And adding it very loosely on this side of the rose as well. And then there we go. So we have that. We're good to go for that. And now we can just add a tad bit more, but on a medium level for the leaves. And I'm mixing some of that green. And I'll mix a little bit of the umber. And here's what I want to do. I want to create some leaves that are slightly bigger and a little more different in consistency. Sorry, not texture, shape. So I'm just going to add twig here and just very loosely add that. This is all I'm doing. Can add one in this direction here. And then just adding dark color to the tip of it so that it looks, it gives you a variation of color. Just like that. And then one here as well. And so you see it's kind of going upward. Then you can have some words in here if you wish, or someone's name, or however you want to do that. And I think we can do, you know, it would be lovely to kind of add a flare of the brown in it as well. So if I do one kind of coming out this way, and I'm just roughly adding these strokes. And then just washing off most of the color. I'm just going to get some of the green and just add the green on there. And it gives us that nice fade happening. And honestly, guys, like all it takes is a little bit of color, and then you go in with your greens and your browns, and it just makes everything pop to another level. I'm going to do one more thing before we tackle the poinsettia, is adding some brown. And I want to add some brown twigs in this manner. So the sepia that I mixed onto the side, I'm just going to add a couple of loose sprigs that are kind of coming out from here. And I want them to be like, I don't know what they're called. Someone help me. They're one of the firs. Are they the firs? Please help me, somebody, in the comments. And I'm just adding it very, very loosely. I don't want it to be super overpowering compared to the rest. So my color is lighter, and I'm just using simple strokes to create this complicated pattern. And actually what you can also do is kind of just washing off all the color. You can extend the pattern and kind of keep going, so then it gives you that soft finish. And again, we can do the same thing that we've done there. Possibly over here, and just very lightly, not overly thick like we did it on this end here. So I've washed up most of the color, and now I'm just going in with water, and I'm creating these little textures. or lines. Firs or evergreens, yes. They do have a mix of the green in them, so you can always go in and add some of the green within the spines or the color that we've laid out, and it'll catch nicely because we've laid down colors in linear format, so it'll kind of spread out almost like in a veiny manner, if that is a word. I'm sure it isn't. Made it up, but I hope you understood what I'm trying to say. All right, so we have that. And now we can kind of go ahead and do the center. Okay, so for the center, mixing some of my red, which is the Madder Lake red, and then I want some black. And I'm just using a tad bit of black because I want it to be like this. Yes, Cindy, so this is layering. We are layering right here. And so the consistency needs to be slightly, well, I think what I had was good enough. But yes, so we're gonna go and create the same pattern that we've created here, but on a smaller scale and kind of, again, uneven sizes. So adding in our little strokes to create these leaves. And I was actually going to say a darker consistency. However, I'm noticing that when you kind of overlay this way, it gives you a fairly decent layer. So you don't really need to have super crazy consistency happening. Or saturation happening is what I meant. And I'm pushing all the color down to the center just like we did with the leaves. There we go. And let's do 2 more or 1 more. Let's see. Do 1 more here. And they don't have to be perfect. Like, see, this one's so much tinier compared to the others. It's almost like I'm going from large to small. And I'm trying to leave that white space in between because I really like it. And there we go, we have that created. And now once we have this, what I'm doing is I'm gonna take a little bit more of the black, mix it in with that red that we have. And then I want to touch the center just so it gives us a nice flare and it doesn't dry up as one flat color. And now once we've done this, you can actually kind of go in and add some lines to kind of create that vein look to it, or you can kind of the veiny look to it, or you can leave it as is, and this way it's nice in all its loose glory. It's entirely up to you. The other thing you could do is also using the back of your brush, you could just kind of go in and create the veins. However, my brush seems to be creating like thicker lines, and because this is so tiny, it might not quite work, but I'm just going to do it so you guys can kind of know what I mean when I say go in and create the veins. It's giving me some texture, not quite a lot. The back of my brush is too thick, guys, so if you have something a lot thinner, but it's given me these little lines, so as I went through it, you can see the darker lines happening. You can see the darker lines happening, right? Yeah, so I kind of like how that has worked out there, so I'm going to leave it as is. And then, yeah, I think this is good. I think we're good with that. So the last thing I would do is Splatter! Okay, so I'm just going to use some of this that I have. And I want this to work almost like it is additional berries happening. But I probably need a bigger, thicker, slightly bigger brush to make it look like berries, because right now the splatter is too tiny. So the larger the brush, the bigger the splatter marks. And I'm just picking areas off to the side to have my splatter happen. I always think it's such a neat finish to any floral painting, especially one that has like a ton of leaves, or, you know, like a nice jumble of florals or botanicals. Okay, all right, so we are done. Okay, so what is the consensus with the snow, guys? Did we come up with a consensus? Because I think I would like to try some of that onto here as well, if I can. And I've never tried it before, so you know what? Like I said, I always wing it with you guys. I might just try some of that now. You don't have to go along with me. You can absolutely stop where you are and just watch and see, because this is me experimenting right now. So I mix some gouache onto the side. And just getting it to like a decent enough consistency. And now we are going to do this. My brush that I'm using is a size 4. If you have a smaller size, I mean, it all depends on how big your area is as well. So it's entirely up to you. All right, so I'm going to add some snow. And so for the snow, I'm going to add just at the top of the leaves or the branches, just to kind of make it look like it's collected at the top. And I'm just using the pointillism method to kind of add it on. Okay, so not a whole lot, just kind of dabbing as we go along. And not saying much because I figured this is fairly self-explanatory for you guys, but I'm literally just almost like, this is like whipped cream on top of your coffee maybe, or hot chocolate if you don't have whipped cream with any of your fancy coffee drinks, like a latte or whatever. The praline chestnut latte at Starbucks. Yeah, that's one of my favorite winter drinks. I don't know if you get it all over in the States, but it's been a while since I've had one. Would be nice. Except we're in lockdown, so we're not quite having any of that. All right, so I'm just going along, and you know, the white kind of helps, because now I feel like if you added the white, then you could almost go in after and add some decorations to the tree as well. And by decorations, I don't mean anything too fancy, but just like Christmas ornamental balls or whatever. Something simple. Nothing too exorbitantly fancy. So just kind of going along. I think we're like almost done with this one here. You can let it dry up. There we go. So we have the snow on the tree, and I think it looks quite nice. And I'm gonna add a little bit onto these areas here. Wish me luck. I hope I don't ruin it but I'm just going to add a very tiny bit to the leaves and possibly along some of the flowers as well. And I don't want to do too much because then it might end up looking completely off. And I've never tried this before, like I mentioned. So just trying something new. Sorry guys, it looked like you guys went off there for a moment. But yeah, we're almost done. This is pretty much it. I think I'm just adding a couple and then we are good to go. But yes, let me know in the comments, or if you're watching this later, or if you're live right now in the chat, what you guys think. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to kind of answer to the best of my ability or capability. And send me your work. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I want to see what you guys do or how you end up making out with these. Like, you can use these for cards, like I mentioned. You can use these for gift tags. I think it's just something nice if you like making your own stuff. Yeah, but okay, I think we're done. So I'm just going to quickly read the comments again before we wrap up. Yeah, the snow can add quite a bit of a nice additional depth, especially because it's something slightly different, right? Yeah, I don't think anyone had any questions. Yeah, I think that was it. Okay, all right. Thanks guys so much for joining, and hope you have a lovely Sunday, and let me know, like I said previously, if you have any questions, just send them along. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy making these for your loved ones, cards or tags or what have you, and have fun with it. Add some metallics. I know quite a few have metallics as well, so that might be nice. Maybe even like a star, like a metallic star on the tree. All right, okay, well, thanks guys for joining. Have a lovely Sunday. Bye.